Bonjour relatives, Shangwewe Kamiguqueen Indigenous. I'm Jamie Kellicutt with HIR Wellness Institute, and we are live for Emotional Sobriety. It is Friday, and we are so glad that you are here with us, relatives. I am getting our smudge ready to go, and as I do that, if Xavier, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself as we get the smudge going.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jamie, for getting that ready for us. Hello, relatives. Welcome. Happy Friday. My name is Xavier Smart. I am a community counselor and community healer and counselor here at Her Wellness. It's Friday. Forgive me. Words are hard. Um, and I'm excited to be here as always, being able to come together every Friday to be in community, to be in healing one another, to share our wisdom, our knowledge, so that we can all continue to heal together. Um, yeah, so with that, I'll pass to John to just kind of introduce himself.
Yep. Thank you, Xavier. And hello, relatives. Thank you for joining us every Friday. My name is John, and I am a social work intern. And I'm just excited to be here with everyone. And today is the anger part two that we promised you. So we will be discussing that later. All right. And then on to you, Jamie, once you're ready.
Yeah, so we've got some smudge here for you, relatives. If you have your own sacred medicines at home, please feel free to bring those into this space. It's always good to wrap up our week with some emotional sobriety and to have some of those sacred things that we carry with us that help us throughout the day, throughout the week, that are special for each of us as individuals. For me, it's my smudge, it's my eagle feather that I carry with me. I also love to have water and tea. So if you have something with you, relatives, I've got my tea here. Xavier has his tea. We have our quote. Here's the quote of the moment. It says, "In every moment of life, you should be what you ought to be." That's our moment, our quote moment. We also like to start with an elder's meditation. And Xavier, I would love it if you would read us our meditation for today to get us started.
So this will be our meditation for today, February 19th. Old man said, "You are both ugly and handsome, and you must accept your ugliness as well as your handsomeness in order to really accept yourself." Larry P. Atkin, Chippewa. My grandfather told me one time that any person who is judgmental to another is also judgmental to themselves. If we want to be free of being judgmental, we need to first work on how judgmental we are to ourselves. If we quit judging others and start accepting ourselves as we are, we will start we will start accepting others as they are. Then we will experience a level of new freedom. Great Spirit, let me accept myself as I am, honoring both my strengths and my weaknesses.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Xavier, Miigwech. Thank you for bringing your voice into this space. I love that. So that what Xavier just read out of was the Meditations with Native American Elders, the Four Seasons. I have been using this book for many years. I have been walking in recovery on the Red Road for the last over 6 years. In October, it was 6 years of last year, and I'm in recovery from alcohol and a long line of intergenerational and historic trauma. And Wellbriety is something that helped me along my journey. And so that's how I came across that book. And it started bringing me closer to my culture and closer to who I am, my true spirit. And I've been practicing that ever since. And so we always on Friday start with our meditation. We start with smudging so that we can bring ourselves into a good space, that we can clear any sort of bad energy that we've been carrying. I use it for prayer. So there's a couple things that we like to do to bring ourselves together into this circle that we have here together. And last week, we spent a good amount of time talking about anger. And we always have a workbook that we bring into this space also. And I will show you that book. So here's what we are working out of. Maintaining Emotional Sobriety During COVID-19 by Tian Dayton. And each week when we come together, we talk about a different piece of this workbook. And it just so happens to be that anger is a big topic. There's a lot to discuss, a lot to get into with the topic of anger. Last week, Xavier started us off with talking about the process of anger. And each one of us, myself, Xavier, and John, we all kind of talked about what's sitting with us and what do we think about anger? How do we normalize it? What does it look like for us? What does it feel like for us? And so we really took a lot of time to sort of break down anger. Break it down, slow it down, and see what happens and talk about it. And so I'd like to bring the book back into the circle again. And I'm going to read a little bit out of here. And then we're going to process it. We're going to talk about it and see what you all think. And again, as always, if there's ever anything that's on your mind that you want to talk about, please let us know. John is moderating, so he will be right there with you. And he will be there to respond to comments. He'll let us know when there's comments. We're just really glad that you're with us. And I do want to welcome any new relatives. If this is your first time ever stopping in for a Facebook Live, welcome. We are so glad that you are here. Miigwech, thank you for joining us. This is HIR Wellness Institute, and we offer free mental health and wellness services to Indigenous and underserved communities and anyone who has been impacted by domestic violence, sexual assault, intimate partner violence, human trafficking, and MMIP, missing and murdered Indigenous people. And every Friday we come together to start talking about healthy coping, how to start changing the narrative. Sometimes we've been walking with some pains for a really long time, and we may not have had the opportunity to talk about them or to even acknowledge, just acknowledge within ourselves some of those pains. And so relatives, if you've been walking in recovery for many years, or maybe it's many months, a few months, couple weeks, couple days, couple hours, maybe you haven't even decided yet that you want to be in recovery. It's okay. This place is for you. This space is for you. So let's start. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. All right. So the angry body is what we're going to talk about today. We experience anger in our bodies as well as in our minds, which is why it feels like it takes us over. When we get triggered into anger, our heart rate accelerates, our blood pressure rises, and our rate of breathing increases. Our body's muscles tense up. We suddenly feel all of these disquieting sensations surging through us. Our face may flush as increased blood flows through our limbs to ready us to take evasive action or to fight. Along with increased blood flow, stress energy hormones like adrenaline and noradrenaline are released in our brains and bodies that give us the burst of energy that's behind our knee-jerk desire to immediate self-protective action. Another very interesting thing happens that explains a lot about why angry people act the way they act. Our attention narrows and becomes locked onto the target of our anger. Soon we can pay attention to nothing else. Arousal that keeps us primed for more anger can also interfere with ability to clearly remember details of our angry outburst. A certain level of arousal is vital for efficient remembering. As any student knows, it is difficult to learn new material while sleepy. Moderate arousal levels help the brain to learn and enhance memory, concentration, and performance. There is an optimal level of arousal that benefits a memory. However, when arousal exceeds that optimal level, it makes it more difficult for new memories to be formed. This is why it is difficult to remember details of really explosive arguments. So what I'd like us to sit with, to start off with, is talking about and thinking about, have you ever had an experience where you were really angry and it went from like 0 to 160 in seconds? And it was just a burst. So that is kind of what we're talking about here. So we're talking about that, how quickly things can move within us when we become angry or something triggers us. So that 0 to gone in seconds. So the reason I want us to just think about, just envision that for a moment. And the reason that I want us to do that is because I'd like us to talk about what is it within our body? How can we understand our body better? Why would understanding our body better help us in those moments? So recognizing what's happening with our body, how does that help us in those moments of being really angry to where we went from here to here? We were sort of stable. Something activated us. We got real angry. And then it went off the charts. That's kind of the thought process that's what I'm sort of sitting with right now. Because when we can recognize what's happening in our body, they're like little signs that are saying, hey, something's going on. Should we take out a tool right now? Because I know some tools. It seems like you're getting activated. Hey. But when we're not paying attention, right? We're not really connected to our body. We're just sort of going along and we're not even thinking or feeling anything that's happening. We're just doing. I'm sort of envisioning like little characters, little cartoon characters who are inside of us that are like hanging out, and then something happens and one's like, do, hey. And then something else happens. There's another one, and all of a sudden they're both going like, hey, I've been trying to tell you. You're getting angry. Something's bothering you. Something's making you feel uncomfortable. But when we don't listen to it, maybe it might have started out as just like this, right? It might have just been like a little something. And then something else happened, and we're still not listening. And our little characters inside are still trying to poke at us. You know, and pretty soon it's like there's all kinds of them. They might really start me going. It took me a long time to realize that realize the incredible connection that it all has to our body and why that's so important. I remember spending many hours of thinking about rolling back the tape. And the first time that my therapist said, we're going to roll back the tape, I was like, what in the what is rolling back the tape? And why am I doing that? Why am I spending my time rolling back tape that I don't see? I don't see any tape. Okay, so how does that work? But it did eventually. It was a way to teach me how to slow down. How to slow down. And I know last week I like to throw in a little bit of funny stories about myself because I think that's important. We should be able to laugh about ourselves. And laughter is good medicine. I know I brought in last week about oh geez, what was I saying? It was something with I just had it and then I lost it. I had it and I lost it. It's okay. We don't need it again. It was last week. Xavier. So as I'm talking about all these things about the body and recognizing the body, what has been on your mind as far as why is that important? Why do we need to know those things?
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing, Jamie. While you were talking and doing like all the flashes, I thought of you know, like the lights, like the traffic lights when they're like blinking,
Yeah.
right? And you're just driving and first you got like, you know, the green ones blinking and it's like, oh yeah, and then the yellow one comes
Mm-hmm.
and then the red one's just going real fast. So
Yeah.
I just thought about all of that. But yeah, no, in terms of being able um, to really tune into our bodies, you know, we it's something that we have continued to just explore during our Fridays, right? The importance of really connecting with our bodies and why that's important. Um, and you know when it comes to anger, it's definitely one of those things that's important as well. um you know, because as you stated, Jamie, it helps to really just slow us down, right? It gives us that opportunity to make those connections. So it's like for me, for example, you know, if I'm talking with someone or if I'm beginning to get frustrated, I know for myself, I start to get very hot real quick. Get a little bit of sweaty, like I just feel super hot. My heart definitely starts to pick up pace a little bit, right? Um, and this is something that, you know, I've had to learn over time, that I've had to really take the time out to just listen to my body or to just pay attention, to notice, you know, what's happening before something, you know, gets to a point where I'm unable to control it, or I'm unable to, you know, think straight, right? So those are just some things for me that I have noticed in terms of, you know, when I'm becoming angry, and in those moments that allows me to um, really just take a step back and say, okay, I am going to take a deep breath,
Yeah.
or I am just going to step away from the situation or walk away, right? And give myself that time to just kind of again, um, just breathe. Because anger, again, just for myself and my own journey, is it's been one of those things I think, um, uh, afraid of getting to a point where it's like, oh, I don't want to, you know, get overly explosive or anything like that. So I've learned to really um, just to really tune in and recognize what's coming up for me, but also learning how to deconstruct some of those narratives around what it truly means to express anger in a healthy way. Because you know, oftentimes I feel that even, you know, the as I continue my journey, that some of the ways that I feel or identify as healthy may not be right the healthiest in terms of like, oh, I am just avoiding. This is not really, getting to the issue. I am avoiding, or I am withdrawing, or just ignoring, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely again really about being able to like Jamie said, kind of rewrite some of those, deconstruct some of those narratives that we've gotten around what anger can look like in a healthy, expressive way. And understanding that it's literally okay to be angry. Like it's okay to feel it, it's okay to express it. But just how can we do that in a way that is beneficial for everyone involved, right? So yeah, being able to really tune into the body again allows us just that moment and that opportunity to stop ourselves or slow ourselves down before we get to a point of where we can't remember things, or where things become blurred, right? So yeah, that I think that was what's sitting with me as we kind of reflected on this reading so far. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Xavier. Thank you for sharing that. And I love that you mentioned how, um, oh, okay. I'm just thinking about how difficult, like the things that you were talking about, being able to be angry, but then it's like, what do we do with that? And how difficult that actually is to be able to practice how you do that. So I'm thinking of like just those automatic responses. So if especially if we've experienced a lot of trauma, let's say, in our life, and we've never really been taught how to have healthy communication, or how to change the energy of the anger, right? How to practice certain things, or to deal with it more in the immediate, so that it doesn't turn into something that escalated to way up here. Like maybe it started out as just something that it was just like, that just made me uncomfortable. Can we talk about that? Because something doesn't feel right about what just occurred. Um, it's like, and I truthfully, for me, I still have days where that's a difficult thing to navigate, right? Like, for me, I have a lot of narratives in my head about women and women being angry, whether it was, um, maybe it is not even like that I was angry, but if I use my voice, or if I have used my voice a certain way, that certain people would interpret that as angry. I mean, I've been called a lot of different names, like most of us have probably all experienced that. I've been called angry Indian woman, or just like stuff that's like not helpful at all. And so there are still these narratives that sort of circle around that I still have to work with. I still have to remind myself that no, it's okay to be angry. I mean, I don't allow myself to be angry to the point where I am losing it, because there was a time in my life where I would lose it, and then that's not healthy for anybody. That's unhealthy for me and anybody else that's around me. And so I have worked real hard to get to a point where I can be angry and use my voice and tell my truth, and then also give myself space and time and do deep breathing or take a walk or whatever it is, so that I can start thinking about it more clearly. Because I do still notice that for myself, if I am angry, I'm not necessarily thinking clearly. And that's just for me, my experience. And so I use things like journaling. I'm like, let me journal, let me let me read what I need to read, and then look it over, and then recognize like, sort of think back, go, oh, maybe I was like real angry, and then I wasn't even thinking logically necessarily. So I've learned to give myself time. I've learned to slow down, to sort of give myself the space that's needed, you know, because I do think that we all deserve time and space. That if something is activating us in a certain way, that we should allow ourselves the ability to reflect on it and then use our voice. Use our voice to talk about whatever that is. John, has there been any comments or anything, or do you have any thoughts at all?
Yeah, no comments so far, but again, I can kind of relate to like just my upbringing growing up and seeing like my brothers, the boys expressing their anger differently, more physical and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I grew up, being a little bit more physical. It wasn't until like later on, as I got older, where I started developing other ways of expressing my anger. And again, for me, I don't experience this moment of like seeing red, or like for some people they say that they black out and they just see red. I don't see that anymore. I don't experience that anymore. And it took many many years, relatives, of just really learning to be in tune with what you're feeling and actually listening to it, and acknowledging it. Because that's one thing that I used to struggle with, was just kind of going with what I felt like at that very moment. And it's so difficult to change that mindset of, well, let me just take a step back once I start feeling it. Um, and so for me, that was something that I knew I didn't want to be physical, because I knew that that wasn't like an answer for me. It wasn't something that I wanted, because it hurt people, hurts the loved ones, friends, hurts family members. So that was something that I seen, and I knew I didn't want that anymore. So I had to start reflecting and think about like, well, what can I do differently? What are some other options other than what I've known?
Mm-hmm.
And it really does take time, and it's something that took many many years of reflecting. um, I still do reflection every single night about like, well, what could I've done differently, or what can I do to help improve, or just taking the time to just take a step back and just feel the feels, and then make the most appropriate decision instead of allowing it to control you. You get to be the person in charge. You get to control the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that is so important. And I think that for many people who are not used to or have not done that before, I highly recommend working on that, and just know that we're not perfect either. We've struggled. We're still struggling with a lot of these issues that we're talking about. So we want you to know that, we can relate, and we're on the same boat. Just because we're the professional doesn't mean that we're perfect. And so, again, anger is a huge topic, and it's something that everyone can experience. And it's up to you to decide how you want to deal with the anger. Let's just remember that, we have a decision, and sometimes it's hard to make that decision, make the other decision, the positive decision, because sometimes you want to just react the way how you feel at that very moment. And it's so important to understand that you can feel that, but is it healthy to act on that?
Yeah.
So it's just so important to recognize the difference. And that's why we're talking about anger, because we know that there's many people, and even us, who are still struggling with it. And we want everyone to know that there are other coping skills, and we will talk about those.
Absolutely. John, that's such a great segue into what I'm thinking about right now. So thank you so much. Thank you for bringing your voice and sharing with us. Really appreciate that. I'm thinking about what are those healthy coping. So, you know, what are the places? First off, I'm wondering, is there any place in your body that you notice when you start getting angry? For myself, I do notice my heart rate raises. I sometimes get shaky. Like I will feel shaky on the inside, and my hands will actually feel a little shaky. And that's a signal for me that tells me, like, ooh, something is really going on. I'm getting very agitated about something. And that is a cue for me that I have learned over time that says, okay, you've got to change your environment. Change your environment, go outside and take a walk, get into nature. In the true moment for me, I can't do reflection immediately. I'm more of a person who has to be like in another space, and generally working on my breath, working on doing breath work. So working on my deep breathing and connecting with my culture. And so for me, and maybe it's culture, but for me, it's more like spirituality. It's like connecting with my spirit again. And so I have to do things like go out into the woods and I lay tobacco, or there's a tree out there that we call the grandfather tree, and that's where I pray. That's where I lay tobacco. Sometimes I just touch the tree or lay up against the tree. And if I'm really having a hard time with something and it's caused me a lot of anger, that is an area that I release, because I really feel connected to everything that's around me, and I really believe that my ancestors are with me, and I will use that as a time to release tears, cry, pray, sing. There's other things that I choose now to do versus years ago I would have maybe pounded my hand against something because I was just like, I didn't want to feel it anymore. And so I would, maybe pound, or I might say things and yell things that were a way to release. So I didn't know how I could release in a healthy way, and that I could still feel it and still let go of it in a healthy way. And I also didn't know that you could actually be angry and you could actually have a conversation with someone and you could actually get through it and you could get out on the other side. I did not know that. Growing up, I didn't know that. As a teenager, I didn't know that. In my early 20s and in my very early 30s, I did not know that. That wasn't a teaching that I ever received. And it wasn't until I started walking my own healing journey and talking with my own therapist, and that she said, Did you know that you can actually feel that way? And you can be sitting with whoever that is that you're angry with, and you can have a conversation, and you can disagree. You don't have to agree. No one said anybody had to agree. You can disagree, and you can talk. And do you know that you can actually end that conversation feeling more love for that person than you did when you started? Did you know you could do that? And I was like, what? You cannot. There is no way. You cannot do that. What do you mean? And she was right. She was right. I tried it. I remember after that, because I thought she was kind of like, come on, now really? You're going to get real angry and then you're going to love them even more? I probably rolled my eyes because I was a little sassy. And it worked. I remember hearing her words. And the next time that I felt anger, I tried it. I was like, well, what the heck? I might as well give it a shot. I got nothing else to lose. And it really worked. I was angry as all get out, but I decided instead I was going to talk it out. I was going to talk it out, and I was going to express what I was feeling, and I was going to listen to the other side, and it became better and better, and I did have more love. Practiced more love for myself, practiced for more love for the people around me. And the more and more that I did that, I recognized it's not so bad. It ain't that hard. Holy cow, we can have conversations and we can disagree. No one ever told me until I was a much older adult. So it really is possible. Is it easy? No. I will not say that it's easy. It took practice. It took me forgiving myself because I wasn't always doing it right. Sometimes I'd get it like halfway and I'd be like, ooh, I got part of it right. Dang it, I messed up the rest of it. Takes practice. It takes practice. It does. And forgiving yourself and being willing to be vulnerable. Because truly, like, think about this, guys. Is it easy to be in a space with another individual? Doesn't matter who this individual is, but to be able to admit and say, I'm angry, and then maybe be able to, like, in the conversation, be willing to enough to hear what the other people have to say. Because, like, when we're angry, we're like, we want to be heard. We want to be heard. We don't necessarily want to hear what other people have to say. It's like, wait a minute, I'm the one that's angry. I don't want to hear what you have to say. So it's not easy. And then there's this other piece of it that it's like, well, there are with situations where you're angry for good reason, and then you have to bring in your boundaries, which is a whole nother conversation. Xavier, what are you thinking right now?
Yeah, you brought in so many good points. And I think what's coming up for me and what's resonating is just this idea of anger and how there's so many factors that can really play into the way we respond to it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and the way we cope and deal with it, right? When we think about just society, right? In hearing both you and John talking, there were moments where I thought about the fact of re- when we look at how you identify, right, in terms of your race or gender, the narratives that are placed upon you in terms of anger and how that really impacts your ability to express anger, to show anger, to feel anger, right? We think about communities of color, like there's not often that um, ability or privilege to express it or show anger in a way that is like you know and right, like we feel that it's right to feel angry, and there's often not that privilege to voice that or to articulate it because it's seen as, oh, you're just the, like you said, Jamie, the angry Indian lady, or
Right,
angry black woman, angry black man, or fill in the blank, right?
right.
And it then leads to just this suppression of anger, and you're just like, well, I don't know where else to put this, right? And then that can lead to so many other factors. So my mind went kind of just big and global, and just how uh just systemic oppression and historically, um people of color haven't been given the opportunity to really voice their anger in a way that is needed for them. And I think about my own journey and the impact of being a Black male, right, and having long hair, and um how that has impacted me and my ability to not be being able to express my anger, right? And even so, if it is expressed, it's seen as, you should express it in a aggressive way, right? And the more we talk about this, I realize that for me, the way that I expressed anger, yeah, there were moments of, where I would want to hit pillows or throw stuff, break stuff, but it was really this aspect of internalizing and um withdrawing, and really just kind of like, I'm just gonna keep my mouth closed and just feel everything and just let it build up. So I for me, a lot of the anger that I feel is, I feel like this heat that just kind of rises internally,
Yeah.
right? um so that's where I feel, a lot of that for myself. And ways that I kind of deal with that now, um I would say is the journaling, or but again, you can never get to that fast enough, right? So um even in those moments, just being able to breathe, or take a sip of water, because as we talk, even as we continue to talk about this, I think about our communities and people that don't have the privilege and the opportunity to get to nature, that don't have the opportunity or the resources to journal, or to um, get away from family, because there's as a house full of people, right? So how are they supposed to, in those moments, allow themselves and give themselves permission and opportunity to even feel and express and release that anger? And it's hard, and it's difficult to try to give, um to give tips or give, right? But ultimately, one thing that we all have, right, is that ability to really um take a deep breath. And oftentimes that it seems, again, like it's silly, and it seems that it's like, why are we always talking about the breath, right? But it truly is one of those things where it's like it gives us that opportunity to really slow down and reconnects us with our body. So in those moments of, you know I don't have the ability to, right, like step away or do whatever it is to release it in a way that you need, just finding time to really connect with the breathing can be helpful, right? Putting your hand on your chest and just feeling your heartbeat, right? Allowing yourself to feel how fast it's beating. That'll give you the awareness to be like, okay, I feel this. I am going to allow myself to take some breaths and slow down, right? If you're in a house full of people, try to sneak away into the bathroom, right, for a few seconds, and give yourself that permission. Look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, it's all right. It's good. Listen, let's take a deep breath. We're not going to let them get to me. We're not going to, fill in the blank. Talk to yourself in the way that you need to talk to yourself, and give yourself that permission, right? If, yeah, so I just think about that, our relatives that don't have that opportunity and that privilege to really um step into those environments, or that have those resources to tap into a way of releasing their anger in that way. And another thing that came up for me, right, is being able to exercise. I think that's one way that I definitely has found helpful for me. I'm a natural athlete, so whenever that's being able to exert that energy out in that way, right? Because oftentimes it is, we want to like either shake something or like hit or like so it's like giving yourself permission to in the moment, hey, if you're in mid argument with someone and you just start doing push-ups, they're gonna look at you like all right, I am okay. It might scare them, right? But it's giving you that opportunity to release and let go of that anger, right? You're getting the necessary allowing yourself to release the necessary hormones to bring yourself back down. You're connecting with your breathing through doing that. You're connecting with your body through doing that, so it's bringing you back to that present moment. So that's just, you know, one way, right, of being able to do that. And I do understand that that does kind of raise your heartbeat a little bit, so we might want to t- tune in and maybe do some stretching instead of doing like push-ups, or you know do some stretching, right? Allow yourself to slow down in in that moment. But sometimes it is that, you know, being able to do some form of workout in that moment really quick can help to just kind of bring us back to our bodies, bring us back to the present moment, and invite that clarity that we need. So those were all the thoughts that were circulating for me while you were talking, Jamie, and as we continue to just explore this topic of anger.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you, Xavier. Thank you. I am so glad that you said that. I really appreciate you talking about how you're right. We don't all have the privilege to be able to do these different things that we're mentioning. And while you were talking about that, like I started to think about the difference of what what these different things would look like, the healing practices or the coping, if you're in an urban setting versus a rural setting, right? And so, like, I started thinking back to when I was a kid living in Milwaukee, and, you know, potentially, I suppose we could go, like, try to sit on the porch, right? Or, like, see if we could go porch and maybe see if you can hear birds, or li- see if you hear how many cars am I hearing drive by, like, or counting. I did a lot of counting when I was young growing up. I remember um, counting for some reason, and I think it was a way for me to find rhythm and
Mm-hmm.
pattern. And so, and I did it naturally, and I don't know, I could guess as to why I was doing it, but I counted things. And so, like, I would, if I was in a car and we were driving somewhere, I would count how many vehicles I saw. And that was a pattern and a rhythm that was sort of like helping me be balanced without me realizing that's what I was doing. Or I remember that I used to love playing cards. So, you know, just having like a, and I know not everybody has a deck of cards, but if you do have cards, you could play solitaire. Like that motion of taking the card, putting it down, taking the card, putting it down. There's that rhythm, that pattern. It's that continuous, like, rhythm that's helping us find our calm. Music, listening to music. Um, you know, we can try to be creative in what are those things that would help us, no matter what our environment is. What is it? And absolutely, the most simple thing is that we all have to breathe to stay alive. We all have our breath. We always have that. And
Mm-hmm.
we always have the ability to feel our own body and to remind ourselves that we're here. We're right here. So if we're feeling really stressed and really angry and we have nothing else to do, we can go back to touching ourselves to remind ourselves, here. I'm here right now. Maybe it's we're going to give ourselves a big hug. Or maybe we're going to go back to our flower hands. When we breathe in, going, We breathe out, our flower hands come back in. Those are some of those simple things that we can do that are simple, yet they're so effective. They're so good for us that they truly help us. They truly help find our way to balance, find our way to be able to start thinking a little differently about things, thinking a little bit clearer. Um, if we have crayons, pencils, markers, a pen and a paper, a pencil and a paper, we could doodle. We could like draw random objects or shapes. That is something that can be calming for us if we're feeling like I just don't know what to do right now. I don't feel good, so I'm just going to doodle, make little drawings. It's these little things, these little doses of things that we can do for ourselves that are actually healing. They're actually healing and they actually help us through those really tough moments. John, how's our comment section going? Is there any comments?
Yeah, so Avery Anderson from last week, she commented
Oh, bonjour.
when um, it was when Xavier was talking. She said, excellent point on privilege and it leading to suppression of feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Avery Miigwech, for saying that.
And then she also said, I think earthing or grounding using grass or soil is something we should push more.
Mm.
Yes, absolutely. Xavier, you could talk all about
I'm
that.
here for it, 100%. I'm
Yes.
here for it. No shoes, yes. But yeah, being able to again allow ourselves to connect with just a small, not even, it doesn't even have to be grass, but just the ground in general, concrete,
Mm.
that gives us the opportunity and the ability to connect with Mother Earth, right? And there's science behind it. They got all the fancy terms and things that they can, put that they, put out there. But ultimately, what it comes down to is, that we are truly a part of Mother Earth, and allowing ourselves to go outside, stand outside barefoot. It's almost like receiving like a, a hug, or receiving just like this exchange of energy that allows you to say like, hey, like, I got you. It's okay to feel angry, it's okay to feel sad, like, Mama Earth's got you. And and I think that's really what it is, right? But again, we got the science, which is always good. That we need that balance. Um, but ultimately, yeah, grounding and earthing, as it's called, again, it connects you again with the texture of the earth, right? So again, bringing your body to that awareness of, okay, I am outside, standing outside with my shoes off. That's where I'm at, right? I can feel the breeze, I can see the cars going by, right? Then you start to tune into, slowly but surely begin to tune into those other senses, and you'll notice that you begin to get into a state of regulation, a state of pattern, rhythm, right? So yeah, I'm 100% for it. It's one of those things. As a child, I used to live in the Bahamas, and we would always race in the street with our shoes off, and that just brought me so much joy. So
Oh,
um, that was one way that I was privileged enough to be able to be outside, and was often told to go go outside even if I didn't want to. It was like, you're gonna go outside. So I was privileged enough to, in that way, be able to really connect with the earth, and really be outside without shoes. And yeah, definitely one of those things that is, I would say, is helpful if you have the opportunity and privilege to do so.
absolutely. Thank you, Xavier. Thank you for sharing that, bringing your voice into this space. Thank you, Avery, for saying that. It reminds me of a couple teachings that I've heard from other elders that have said that when you have sadness and anger, how you should go back to Mother Earth and like dig in the dirt, that you can actually like take that energy can go right back into her, so that she'll absorb it for you, that she will take it on for you. And so I think that's why and planting flowers and vegetables and all that stuff, it's like being in the dirt is healing, you know, being able to feel the dirt and just release whatever that is back into earth. Absolutely. Gentlemen, we are so close to being out of time, and I think that this is a wonderful time to just sort of give some last minute thoughts on anger, last minute words of encouragement for our relatives. Who would like to start? Who wants to bring their voice into this space?
I volunteer John.
I can go. Yeah. So again, relatives, I just want you to know that, anger, it's something that we all feel, and it's okay to feel that. And it's okay to honor it, but just don't allow it to sit too long. Just, there's different coping skills. Like for me, I love poetry. When I used to be very angry, I learned that if I wrote it down, whether it's a poetry or through journaling, I can express my anger down on paper. And for me, it's just personally, I don't know if others can relate to, but once I write down all my anger on paper, it actually feels like I'm releasing it from my body. So
Yeah.
for me, it was very helpful for me to just write down exactly what I'm feeling at that very moment. And then I love poetry because I can title it. So, however I'm feeling at that moment, I name it, I put a title on it. And then it's something that I can go back and reflect on when I'm not feeling angry and really process and reflect on it. So that's one reason why I prefer poetry over journaling, just because of like you can label and put it like a timestamp on that very moment. Um,
Mm.
Whereas for me, I feel like journaling is like overall throughout your day how you're feeling, versus poetry for me is more like a timestamp of that very moment. Um, but again, everyone is a little bit different on how you want to do your poetry or, journaling. There's no right or wrong way. You get to decide. And then also for me, I love deep breathing because that's one thing that I used to do often. Is once I start feeling like, hey, I know I'm gonna start escalating my anger in a few minutes, I have to take that step back and start doing deep breathing. Or if I'm arguing with someone, I know that I have to remove myself from that situation before I know that the further along we talk, the more I'm going to escalate in my anger. So that's one thing that I've learned to do over time. Um, and it's so difficult to remove yourself from a situation. Even if you know that you're right, sometimes it's not worth engaging.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
I know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm not going to engage with you at this very moment. So that's like something that you have to learn over time, is to just take a step back. Um, and sometimes, it's going outside. Like for me, I remember Xavier was talking about how for some people, you may not have a quiet space or a space. For me, I grew up in a household with 10 or 11 people in a 3-bedroom house.
Yeah.
So we shared rooms with, and I shared rooms with all of my brothers and everything like that. So for me, I created my own space it was when I was young. I used to crawl underneath the bed and just sit in there. So that was me creating my own space. Once I get angry, I used to crawl underneath the bed and stay there, cry there, or whatever I need to do. So that was kind of my way, because I knew that there was no other personal space, because there's 11 people living in one household. or sometimes I would like our backyard was pretty big, so sometimes I would run to the backyard and just hide in a corner. And I used to do that a lot too, because I started off being physical, and then I knew I didn't want that, so then I started hiding and hiding my feelings.
Mm.
Um, and then along the way, I develop all of these other ways, and it's a journey. It's definitely a journey, and you learn to explore different coping skills. And along the way, if it doesn't work or if you don't see yourself aligning with it, then it's okay. Try something else. And that's why we're talking about all of these different coping skills and bringing up our coping skills, because what works for us doesn't necessarily work with you, and what works with you may not work with someone else who's on this Facebook Live either. So that's why we encourage everyone to share like your coping skill, what works for you, what are ways to help you calm down once you start feeling that anger,
Yeah.
because everyone is so different. And that's what we talk about it, and just being kind to yourself, especially once you start feeling that anger, and just that reflection. You may not be able to reflect that very moment. I find it very hard for people to reflect during anger, but afterwards. And I love what Jamie said about sometimes talking to that person and just engage in a conversation. That's one thing that I've learned over the years with a relationship. Sometimes you can be angry with that person, but sometimes you need to talk to that person. And I try not to go to bed upset. That's one thing I try not to.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, John. That's
Mhm.
wonderful. Thank you for bringing your words into this space.
I can go next. Yes, thank you, John, for sharing, bringing that into the space. Thank you all for being here, relatives, for being able to just again explore this topic of anger and allowing us to hold this space for you all as we navigate the ins and outs of it. Again, it is one of those things that many of us don't have the privilege to talk about, or don't have the words to even articulate what it is, or ways to express it. And we want you all to know that we see you, that we are here for each and every one of you, um, and that it is truly, truly, truly a journey. And to allow yourselves and give yourselves permission to um, slow down and create spaces for yourself, right? If you're in places where it's a bit hectic, um, try to find ways to create space for yourself. Try to find ways to create rhythm and patterns for yourself, right? Because that'll allow you to, again, um, come back to a state of regulation. So, like Jamie said, if it's just going outside and just counting the cars, or counting the lines on the sidewalk, right?
Mhm.
Just give yourself that permission and opportunity to create rhythm and pattern for yourself. And as always, we are grateful to be here to model what a private Zoom group would look like. Because we truly do, hope that, relatives, that you all feel that whenever you're ready, you're like, yeah, let's do private, let's do a private group, let's get dive a little bit deeper, um, right, and let's reflect a little bit more together in a more intimate circle, in a more intimate way, right, and provide that healing through that way. um so yeah, again, this is just such a great topic to explore, and so many different avenues and um aspects of it that we could get into. And um yeah, yeah, I think that's where I'm at. And um looking forward to next week and looking forward just to the weekend. I hope everyone has a safe and warm. I don't know if it's supposed to be cold. I don't know if it's supposed to snow. I don't know what it's supposed to do, but I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, filled with joy and filled with lots of love. So thank you.
I think we reached our snow quota for this month.
I agree. Like
Oh, thank you, Xavier. Thank you, John. Relatives, thank all of you. I thank you so much. We all thank you so much for being here with us again on this Friday for Emotional Sobriety. If I could just remind you all that you are beautiful, you are worthy, you are enough. And the fact that you came here today and we are all in this circle together, that is healing. That is CAM, Community Activated Medicine. Leah Denny, our CEO and founder, she coined that term, and it means the people are the medicine. So you are the medicine, I'm the medicine, John's the medicine, Xavier's the medicine. We all are the medicine. And yes, we may have hard days, and yes, we may get angry sometimes, and we might have different feelings, and it's okay. It's okay to have those feelings. It is okay to honor those feelings. And then it's what do we do with them? What do we do with them? So we go into our toolbox, and we pull out a healthy coping skill. We pull out a breathing exercise. We pull out a journal. We go for a walk. We find pattern and rhythm, like Xavier said. We listen to music. We smudge. We get our sacred medicines. We pray. Whatever that is for you, whatever that means for you, know that you are not alone. And I want to remind you that if you are in a space where you truly are not feeling safe, I want you to call somebody. I want you to reach out and ask for help. If it is an emergency, call your emergency lines. We have many services here at HIR Wellness Institute that are for you every day of the week. Just reach out and give us a call. We have a CARES Warm line, 414-748-2592. You'll receive a call or text back within 24 hours, Monday through Friday, during our business hours. We have our Facebook page. We have our HIR Wellness website. We have our support groups throughout the week. Let us know. If you're needing some extra support, we are here for you. And if we don't have the service, we will help you find it. We have advocacy. Sending you all lots of love and looking forward to seeing you next week Friday and spending some time with you next week Friday. Please have an enjoyable, safe, wonderful, beautiful weekend. Don't forget to take care of yourself. Don't forget to love yourself. The more that you love yourself, you are loving others around you. Others around you will feel that and see that, and that continues the healing. So be well, and please take a moment to support others. And I want you to take a moment during this month, and not just in February. I know we're in Black History Month, but it doesn't just end in February. Support our Black and brown organizations. Support our brothers and sisters who are doing the good work out there. We'll be showcasing some throughout the month, and so you can find some on our website. But I really encourage you to do that. You know, these different special months that we have, like Black History Month and Native American Heritage Month, I know that they are amazing times to be able to do that, but it doesn't end with just the month. It really doesn't. All year round, it takes all of us. And we are a part of this great healing that needs to happen across our entire globe, and really needs to happen within our country. And you're part of it. Part of that means reaching out to others who maybe don't look like you and learn something new about them. Show love and respect, kindness and care. Be supportive. We're in this together. Sending you all, and we will see you next week.